All right, guys, today we're going to look at the notes here on SOL 5C. You will need to write all of these down, so I will try to make sure I give you guys enough time to write down each slide. So you will need a sheet of paper. Again, write down all the notes that go with these slides. In 5C, we're going to look at World War I. We will look more in detail about this in the book over the next couple of days, and I'll try to explain a few things that get left out. The notes do not kind of go over all of the details. We're mainly just going to look at what causes World War I and then what the results are of the war as well. But like I said, we'll get a little bit more into detail by looking in the book and looking at some of the actual battles and key events of World War I. 5C understanding says the United States involved in World War I set the stage for it to emerge as a global superpower later on in the 20th century. To put it simply, America will enter World War I a couple of years after fighting had already begun. We join in and we go and help one side. We help the Allied powers defeat the Central powers in World War I. And by doing so, kind of set ourselves up and emerge as a superpower, as a world power. We talked during the Spanish-American War about how the United States now had territory overseas, how we were able to go to Cuba and win a war outside of the United States. World War I is going to really solidify the United States as a global power now, and will, as it says here, set the stage for later on in the 20th century and set up for when we get into World War II, which will come in SOL 7. When we, again, go to Europe, and even in this case go to Asia and even parts of Africa, and help defeat the Axis powers in World War II. But World War I sets the stage for that, and we begin to see the United States emerging as that global power. Okay, moving on now, looking at the next slide. As I said, we're not going to get into a lot of the details of actual fighting and battles of World War I. We will read about that in the book. We mainly just focus on what causes World War I and what the results are. And we will just focus on American involvement in World War I. One thing to note, World War I starts before the United States gets involved. We'll read about this in the book. One of the key events that starts World War I, as we will read, is the alliance system. Countries in Europe especially began to ally themselves with one another as a way to better expand their empires, as a way to try to protect each other. And what ends up happening is countries begin to ally themselves with each other for protection. When something happens in Europe, it sparks a major global war because all the allies have to come to the rescue. What happens in Europe is the Archduke Franz Ferdinand will be assassinated by a rival country, and when that happens, the country wants to go to war to vow or to kind of avenge the death of the Archduke. But before doing so, they ask their allies, "Are you willing to protect us?" And they say yes. So war breaks out, and then allies join in with each other. Next thing you know, we've got a global war. That all happens before the United States even gets involved. So what we're going to look at now is the war's already started. The Archduke gets assassinated. World War I is happening. America is trying to stay out. America does not want to get involved, but we will. We will not be able to stay neutral. America tries to remain neutral. We have this theory of isolationism where we want to keep to ourselves. We've got people in America who feel like this is a European problem and America should not get involved in the war, but we're not going to be able to stay out of it. We have too much of a tie to Great Britain, and in the end, it's probably that tie to Great Britain that forces us to join the Allied powers and help Great Britain. The next event that gets the United States drawn into World War I will be Germany using submarines. The German military had begun using submarines as a way to fight naval battles, and they were using their submarines to attack Allied ships. What happens here is a ship named the Lusitania gets attacked. America continued to try to trade with Great Britain during World War I. Germany did not like the fact that America was continuing its trade with Great Britain. And so Germany threatens to use its submarines to stop any ships from trading with Great Britain. Well, a ship named the Lusitania gets attacked by a German submarine. That ship was found to have cargo and supplies on board, as well as some Americans. So when this submarine attacks the Lusitania and Americans are killed, America kind of gets drawn into World War I. This is just one of the many reasons why America does get involved. But Germany will use submarines. They'll attack the Lusitania. There are Americans on board. Some Americans will be killed in this attack. And as we talked about in 5A, anytime America gets attacked and American lives are lost, the public perception is we have to go to war. Next reason, and we mentioned this one already, the U.S. has economic and political ties to Great Britain. Great Britain has a democracy by this point. They're very similar to the United States. They have a capitalist economy. They are a trading partner with the United States. Even though we don't have a formal alliance with Great Britain, there is an informal one there. America and Great Britain have a lot of common bond. Obviously America separated from Great Britain when America was being founded. So even though we fought the Revolutionary War and those types of things against Great Britain, we still have connections and ties to Great Britain. So Great Britain is actually fighting against another side during this war. We'll see what the sides are here in some upcoming slides. But America just has natural ties to Great Britain, so we are going to feel more of a need to help Great Britain than we are the German side of World War I. And then another reason that America gets involved is the Zimmerman telegram. This is not explained in the notes, so you'll need to make sure you pay attention to this, and we'll read about it in the book, but you will need to know what the Zimmerman telegram is about. The Zimmerman telegram was a letter written by Germany that it was attempting to send to Mexico. And the basic breakdown of the Zimmerman telegram is the letter that Germany was sending to Mexico was Germany was trying to get Mexico to attack the United States. Germany was going to promise Mexico that it would help Mexico get back some of its lost territory that America had taken over the course of history, like Texas and New Mexico and parts of Arizona. Germany wanted Mexico to attack the United States, basically to try to keep the United States out of World War I. If Mexico attacks us here in America, then America could not send troops to Europe, and Germany felt that as long as America stayed out, Germany could win the war, and Germany could defeat Great Britain. But Germany knew that if America sent help to Great Britain, that it would hurt the German chances of winning the war. So Germany is trying to get Mexico to attack us, not because they thought Mexico could defeat us, but they thought it could distract America long enough to keep us out of World War I and give Germany enough time to defeat Great Britain in Europe. So again, the war has already started before any of this happens. Again, the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, when he gets assassinated, that starts the war in Europe. That lasts for about 2 years before the United States even gets involved. The reasons America gets involved are all listed here. We wanted to be neutral. We're just not going to be able to because we have too much ties to Great Britain. The Lusitania gets attacked by German submarines. American lives and American cargo are lost. So we have to fight for that. And then Germany sends the Zimmerman telegram to Mexico, trying to get Mexico to attack us. And once we find out about this telegram, it's only natural that America goes and tries to defeat Germany. As far as your two sides, the next two slides will tell you who fought on which side of the war. You're going to have two sides. You're going to have the Allied powers and the Central powers. Your Allied powers during World War I will be the British Empire or Great Britain, France, Russia up until 1917, Serbia, Belgium, and the United States. Those will be your major Allied powers. A couple of notes about some of these places. Serbia will actually be one of the major causes of World War I. It will be Serbia who will assassinate the Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Their assassination of the Archduke is what sparks this whole entire war. But America will be on the same side as Serbia in this war because Serbia has alliances with some of these other Allied powers. As far as Russia, it says Russia will be in World War I up until 1917. In 1917, Russia will have a revolution called the Bolshevik Revolution where they will overthrow their leadership, and this will begin the process of Russia becoming a communist country and eventually set up the formation of the Soviet Union, which we'll talk more about once we get into World War II and post-World War II. But once that revolution happens, Russia withdraws from World War I. They start to focus on things going on within their own country and not so much about the fighting taking place in Europe. So your Allied powers are Great Britain, France, Russia until 1917, Serbia, Belgium, and the United States. And again, a lot of these places are labeled up on the map, up on the wall in the classroom. On the other side, you have the Central powers. The Central powers will be World War I. A lot of these will become Axis powers in World War II. Your Central powers will be the German Empire, or Germany, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which is basically where present-day Austria and Hungary are in Europe. You'll have Bulgaria and the Ottoman Empire. Bulgaria will be the country who has the Archduke Franz Ferdinand get assassinated. So really, Bulgaria and Serbia are the major two, starters of this war. But because of the alliance system that these countries had developing prior to World War I, countries come to Bulgaria's aid, countries come to Serbia's aid, and the next thing you know, you've got a full-fledged world war. So you have the German Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire is where present-day Turkey would be roughly found in Europe. Okay, and then, like I said, we're going to fast forward now to the end of the war. We'll look more at some details in the book over the next couple of days at some of the major events of World War I and how this war all plays out. But once the war is over, as we mentioned in the understanding slide, America will emerge as a world power. America is kind of looked at as the hero. We go in, we help save Great Britain. We save the Allied powers from defeat by the German military and the Central powers. And we emerge as a world leader after the war, or at least we try to. It says at the end of World War I, President Woodrow Wilson prepared a peace plan known as the 14 Points. President Woodrow Wilson, the president during World War I, will create his thoughts for a treaty and a peace plan following World War I, and again called the 14 Points. Of those 14 points, one of the major points was for the creation of what was going to be called a League of Nations. The League of Nations is going to be a peacekeeping organization. The goal of the League of Nations is going to be countries around the world are going to join in this worldwide alliance. And its main goal is going to be to try to prevent any future wars from happening like this again. Anytime conflict breaks out, the League of Nations is supposed to meet and discuss the problem and try to eliminate another war. At least that's going to be the goal. President Wilson has 14 goals, 14 points, and one of those 14 is going to be the creation of the League of Nations. The League of Nations will get created. As we're going to find out, though, on the next slide, it does not exactly work very well. It's not going to be very effective because one major country is not going to join. We'll find out who that is here on the next slide. But President Woodrow Wilson creates a peace plan. That peace plan is going to be called the 14 Points, and one of those 14 points is going to be for the creation of a League of Nations, which will be a peacekeeping organization whose goal it is going to be to try to eliminate another war from happening. Obviously, if you know anything about history, you know it's not going to be very effective, because if there's a World War I, there's going to be a World War II about 20-some years after World War I. So the League of Nations is not going to be very effective. The reason it's not very effective is mentioned here. Even though President Wilson came up with the idea for a League of Nations, the United States is not going to join. It says the United States Senate will not ratify the Treaty of Versailles because of a desire to resume pre-war isolationism. America does not want to join any alliances with European countries. The reason we don't want to join any alliances is because we don't want to get drawn back into another war if another war happens. So the Senate, whose job it is to approve treaties, will not ratify the Treaty of Versailles, even though it has a League of Nations in it, even though a lot of the points were created by our own president, President Wilson. We will not agree to the treaty because people in the Senate, people in Congress, and people in America want to remain isolated. They do not want to get drawn back into another war. So the United States does not become a member of the League of Nations. It does get created. America just doesn't join it. And so what's going to happen is America doesn't join because we don't want to get drawn into another war. Another war will happen, and the irony is America will get drawn into that war as well, even though we try to stay out of it. So America will not ratify the Treaty of Versailles because we want to try to remain isolated. We do not want to get dragged back into any more European wars. So we do not join the League of Nations. And that's it. That is all for the SOL 5C notes. If you missed something, didn't get anything written down, they are attached on Google Classroom. You can go back and write those down and get those written down in your notes. If you missed something or missed some explanations, this video is on YouTube, so you can go back and rewatch it.